Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where, as always, you can download and check out show notes at autoimmunerehab.com. Today's episode is sponsored by my free 30-day self-care journal template. Grab your copy today at annalauraBrown.com/self-care. Again, that's ANNALAURABROWN.com/self-care, and the link will of course be included in the show notes as well. So for today's episode, this is going to be one of the infrequent type episodes that I do where I am going to talk about food and diet. As most of you know, the purpose of this podcast is to help you heal in all areas of life, and more specifically with your autoimmunity, to focus more on the other aspects that are not diet and food. However, to this day, some of my more popular searches on my blog as well as on my Pinterest are about foods to help heal your thyroid and Hashimoto's and that kind of thing. And I feel like this is something that I want to address. So today's topic, as you've probably noticed from the title, is going to be 7 foods that you must have in your cupboard to help you heal from an autoimmune condition. Noted that a big focus here is on Hashimoto's and thyroid issues because those are my personal struggle. So I'll be sharing with you what I feel these are. No, this is not a comprehensive list of every food that could help assist you in your healing journey from an autoimmune condition. And notice that depending on the autoimmune condition, if you have allergies, that kind of thing, that the actual food list may vary a little bit. This is just based on my own personal experience. These are obviously things that I do not have allergies to. Also note that I am not a dietitian or an official nutritionist, merely a health coach. So these are merely just some ideas for you to think about. These aren't necessarily an official list, and if you have concerns about any of these, please ask your doctor or nutritionist. So with no further ado, from somebody who really loves avocados, I even have avocado lover listed in my tagline on my social media, and then of course also am a dog lover. Avocados are actually not on this list, although they are really good and healthy for you. They are not something that I chose to include on this list of 7 healthy foods to have in your cupboard with an autoimmune condition. So with no further ado, let's get started. And I guarantee you that some of these might surprise you a little bit. So even if you think you maybe already know what a lot of them are, stay tuned because they may not be what you think they are. Okay, so first, number 1 is berries, but not strawberries. So what do I mean by that? So berries would mean like blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, cherries, primarily, and then, maybe even cranberries or some cranberry juice. You want to be careful there that you're not intaking any of these berries with too much sugar. I recommend purchasing them either fresh or frozen, depending on the season and the cost, and could just eat them plain or enjoy them with some kind of a smoothie or with some kind of cereal as a topping for some gluten-free pancakes, different things like that. And why do I not recommend strawberries? I don't recommend strawberries because strawberries are what are considered a goiter-centered centric food. So if you have a goiter or have thyroid issues, then you want to not totally avoid strawberries, but you want to have them in a minor amounts per se. So for me personally, I will eat a few strawberries during strawberry season in the summer, but literally it's like a few, and throughout the years I'm buying my other berries. It usually ends up being primarily frozen because I live in Utah and we have a cold climate. Berries don't really grow here other than in the summer. It's primarily, the other berries that are not strawberries. So that's just what I want to say about berries. And berries are a really high, good anti-inflammatory food. So that's one of the reasons that I feel like berries are a food that you must have in your cupboard when you have an autoimmune disease. Okay, number 2 is seaweed. Now, a lot of people give me funny faces or react a little bit strange when I talk about having seaweed in your cupboard. But seaweed is really good for a lot of things, primarily because of its high iodine count, which a lot of us, especially if we have thyroid issues, we need support via higher iodine. And you can take a supplement with iodine, which I do that, but you also have to be careful and doesn't always absorb. There's other things like that. Seaweed is really good, actually, when taken in the right way. So what I do is I buy like those seaweed snacks. that you can get that have just a little bit of salt with them, and they're nice and crunchy. They make a really good alternative to chips as well. So seaweed snacks, really good food to have in your cupboard when you have any kind of autoimmune condition. Okay, number 3 is Brazil nuts. Now, Brazil nuts are especially high in selenium, which is really good again if you have thyroid issues, but even if you're dealing with an autoimmune condition that's not related to the thyroid, Brazil nuts can be really good. I always like to have these on hand. However, I will add that you want to be really careful to not eat too many, because that can give you an overdose of things. And so personally, I get the big pack at Costco, and I just eat like 2 or 3 whenever I feel like I need them, which usually ends up being a couple times a week. So I don't eat them every day, and it's just, on occasion when I feel like I need them. And I definitely don't eat as many Brazil nuts as I would say like some walnuts, pecans, cashews, that kind of thing. Uh, I will also add here while we're talking about nuts that you do want to be careful with peanuts and almonds, because peanuts are a lectin, which too many lectins can actually cause some issues with a lot of people with autoimmune conditions. And almonds are also a goiter-centered food, just like strawberries are, especially if you're just eating the almonds. Now, if you're eating something like almond milk, that's a little bit of a different topic, because a lot of almond milks don't have tons of almonds in them, and they're processed differently, they're cooked, that kind of thing. But especially raw almonds, you want to be really careful with. Okay, the number 4 is buckwheat flour. Now, this is one that I know is going to surprise a lot of people, but buckwheat flour, despite having the name wheat in it, is a naturally gluten-free flour that is really nutrient rich and has a lot of really good benefits for your overall health, really good vitamins and minerals. And you can make really good pancakes, really good waffles, really good cakes, desserts. I have a recipe that I have enjoyed making recently that I found in actually a vegan magazine. Even though I'm not vegan, I still like to read those sometimes and get some good ideas for recipes for a microwavable buckwheat flour, kind of like a muffin type cake thing that you can make for breakfast. That recipe did have sugar in it, but I don't put sugar. I put a couple drops of stevia and or honey in it instead. And it tastes really, really good. And so I feel like buckwheat flour is a really must have in the cupboard if you have an autoimmune disease, because it makes also a really, really good replacement for, just any kind of gluten-free flour. However, if you're just going to use buckwheat flour on something that, you want to rise, like you probably wouldn't make bread out of it by itself anyway, or certain kinds of things, you would need to also add in the xanthan gum or mix buckwheat flour with like a gluten-free flour mix or tapioca or rice flour or something else. But like I said, there are endless options you can do with just buckwheat flour. And I have found that the best place and the best discount to get it is actually either at Whole Foods or on Thrive Market. I know that sounds kind of strange, but a lot of places like Walmart doesn't carry it. You can get it shipped to you through walmart.com, but then you have to buy it in bulk and it's pretty expensive. Also, a lot of, like, I know even my local Smith's, which is like the Kroger equivalent, they don't even have it. They do have it at Sprouts, however, it's usually pretty expensive. And for some reason, I just find that Whole Foods has a really good price on it. And then, of course, Thrive Market does as well. So I'll include the link to Thrive Market below in the description if you want to go and check that out. You can get a pretty good promo the first time you sign up and try your first order. Okay, then number 5 is fermented foods. So fermented foods would be things like pickles. Yes, it's true, pickles are really good for you. Pickled onions, kombucha, things like that. These are really, really good to help support your digestive system and help heal your gut. I will warn you, though, that if you are currently struggling with something like a candida infection, you will want to be careful with too much kombucha and focus more on the pickles, the pickled onions. Kimchi, which is a really common Korean food, is really good as well, for as far as fermented foods go, that kind of thing. The number 6 is probiotic foods. So and probiotics. So that would mean, like shakes that have probiotics added in, a powdered probiotic, to some degree yogurt with probiotics. However, you want to be pretty careful there because a lot of them, they add the probiotics, but then also overload on sugar. So you want to really read labels there and be really, really careful when it comes to that kind of thing. Another probiotic food that can be really good for your digestion is if you can handle the dairy. So that's kind of a caveat to this. So there technically are dairy-free versions, and you can try to make your own dairy-free version, but the very best version is going to be if you can handle the dairy, and it's kind of like a yogurt, but it's not really a yogurt, is something like a kefir, and temporarily forgot what it was called. Sorry about that. I was like, I knew it started with a K, but couldn't remember exactly what it was called, hence the reason for the pause. So like a kefir. Also, some other things that you can look at would be things like miso, like sauerkraut, different things like that. And you can research, there's a lot of different research and different things like that. Like as I was Googling here, I even found an article on probiotic foods from the Harvard University blog. So anyhow, lots of different options there, but you definitely want to try out some of those. Okay, and then the last but not least would be collagen and any foods that are really high in collagen. So uh, if you have an autoimmune condition, you definitely want to be taking a collagen supplement. I have one that I really highly recommend that I feel like is the best and highest quality that I will include with the link in the show notes. There are lots and lots of different collagens out there. Basically, you want to look primarily for a marine collagen, and you also want to look for one that has really high bioavailability, and ideally a powder that you then mix with liquid. There are a lot of collagens being sold out there that are liquids that come as a liquid, and they're claiming that those are better, but they aren't necessarily, in my opinion. And so you want to look and really do your research on the collagen. And personally, I take a collagen that also has essential oils in it that are designed to help with your metabolism. So that's an extra perk there as well. And I would say that price, you don't want to necessarily go off price. Some of the cheaper collagens aren't necessarily going to be the best. Some of the most expensive ones aren't necessarily going to be the best. But that, so anyhow, I happen to really, really like the MetaPower collagen, which is the one that I'm referring to, that I will include some information on in the links to the show notes. So let me go back over and summarize for you what these 7 foods are. Number 1 is other kinds of berries, not strawberries. So that would be blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, cherries, maybe cranberries. Even I've heard really good things about mulberries, but personally, you can't get mulberries where I live. So, I haven't been able to figure out how to get those, but that would be good too. Number 2, seaweed. Number 3, Brazil nuts. Number 4, buckwheat flour. Number 5, fermented foods like pickles, pickled onions, kefir, yogurt without the sugar, kombucha, that kind of thing. Number 6, probiotic foods. Number 7, collagen. So anyhow, I hope that you have felt this episode to be helpful and that you will make some changes in your diet to help you with your autoimmune healing. If you want to do a free consultation, the link to do that will also be in the show notes. Or if you have any questions about any of these foods, you want to reach out and share with me some recipes, or you want me to share some recipes with you, please feel free to do that. Also, please go into iTunes and rate this podcast and write a review if you feel so inclined to do so. I'm really looking for more people to do that. It will help a lot more people find the podcast and benefit from it. And anyhow, take care, and I will look forward to sharing with you soon on another episode of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast.